This passage is adapted from Neeru Paharia, Annette Kynan, and Jill Avery, The Upside to Large Competitors. Large competitors are often viewed as a major threat for startups and small companies. Big companies have more financial resources and greater scale, market power, and brand awareness than smaller ones. However, our research finds that a smaller brand can actually benefit if consumers can see the competitive threat it faces from a larger organization. When a US-based ice cream chain with about 1,400 stores moved within 50 steps of a GP Licks ice cream store in Newton, Massachusetts, some people expected that JP Licks, a small locally owned company, would be beaten out of the Newton market. But consumers rallied around JP Licks, and the national chain later closed its nearby location. When the owner of the Los Angeles-based coffee store chain, the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, could not stop a large coffee shop chain from moving in next door, he was surprised to see his sales shoot up, so much so that he started proactively co-locating new stores next to large chain ones. These examples are not anomalies. In 6 lab and field studies, we explored the effects of having a large dominant competitor and found that highlighting a large competitor's size and close proximity can help smaller brands instead of harming them. Compared to when they are in competition with brands that are similar to them in size, or when consumers view them outside of a competitive context, small brands see consumer support go up when they are faced with a competitive threat from larger brands. This support translates into higher purchase intention, more purchases, and more favorable online reviews. As part of our research, we conducted a field study at an independent bookstore in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Upon entering the bookstore, 163 prospective shoppers were exposed to one of 3 versions of an in-store ad, emphasizing either the store's large competitors, small competitors, or no competition. Shoppers who read the large competitors version were told that the store's main competitors are large corporations that have the ability to put small businesses such as this bookstore out of business. The small competitors version indicated the store's main competitors are other locally owned small bookstores in Cambridge. In the no competition version, participants were given no information about the competitive environment. Shoppers were then given a $5 coupon coded with the in-store ad version they read. Analyzing shoppers' sale receipts and the number of redeemed coupons, we found that shoppers were significantly more likely to make a purchase after reading the large competitors' version of the in-store ad compared to the small competitors or the no competition version. They also purchased more items and spent more money at the store compared to shoppers reading this version. These results suggest that framing the competitive game and emphasizing a competitive narrative against a large company can help a small establishment and spur consumers to make a purchase that supports the smaller competitor. In subsequent studies, we tested this framing the game effect in various contexts and product categories and further found that support for a large brand decreases when consumers view it as being in competition with a smaller brand. In one study, we asked participants to assess 2 hypothetical rival tire shops, Tire World and Tire Planet, under 3 conditions: small versus large, small versus small, or large versus large. While participants indicated no preference for the small or large shop when it was competing against a competitor of similar size, the small versus large competitive context elicited a strong preference for the small rather than the large shop. Okay, which choice best describes the overall structure of the passage? A popular belief about a particular industry is explained. Experiments supporting that belief are described, and the implications of the experiments are identified. An unexpected claim about consumer behavior is introduced. Examples supporting the claim are detailed, and experiments confirming the claim are discussed. A debate about an economic theory is outlined. 2 opposing views on the debate are explained in greater detail, and research supporting one of those views is recounted. A negative impact of a common business practice is presented. 2 stories are used as an illustration, and research suggesting improvements are summarized. So I'm leaning towards B because because why is this unexpected? Because the normal perception is that large competitors are a major threat, right, for startups and small companies. However, the research shows that smaller brands can benefit, right, which is something that is unexpected. And then examples are given from the real world, and then the research is presented, right? So it's an unexpected claim, example supporting the claim, and experiments confirming the claim, right? It's not just about a particular industry, right? It's got to do with consumer behavior. So it's not A. It's not an economic theory that's being debated. And there is no mention of a negative impact of a common business practice. As used in lines 11 to 12, expected most nearly means. Okay. Some people expected that JP Licks would be beaten out of the Newton market. So some people anticipated, right? This was something that they thought would happen. So that's anticipated, right? They didn't demand that JP Licks should be beaten out or hoped or admitted, right? So it's an anticipation. The third paragraph primarily serves to, so 22 to 33. So this gives real world examples, right? No, sorry, not real world examples. This actually introduces their tests. Examples are in the second paragraph. This talks about this support translates into, so we explored the effects and found that highlighting so this is kind of presenting the results of their experiment. Outline the steps in a larger field study, offer another researcher's interpretation, introduce a challenge the researchers face, summarize the findings of a series of experiments. So this is the findings, right? They found that indeed the smaller company benefits. This is not a challenge or an interpretation. And this is not even the steps, right? I think the steps come later. This is more of a summary. Which choice provides the best evidence for the idea that consumers' promotion of a small company may extend beyond shopping at its store? Okay, so let's mark the lines for this. I'll just open this. 31, 33, 36, 40, 31 to 33, 36 to 40, and 40 to 44, 40 to 44, and 44 to 48. Okay. So we have to find evidence that consumer support for small businesses extends beyond purchases. Okay, this support translates into higher purchase intention, more purchases, and more favorable online reviews. So that sounds like a good answer because they are not just purchasing, but they're also leaving positive reviews. Upon entering the bookstore, 163 prospective shoppers were exposed to one of the three versions of an in-store ad. Shoppers who read the large competitors version were told that the store's main competitors are large corporations, and the small competitors version indicated the store's main competitors are others locally owned bookstores. So B, C, and D talk about the design of the experiment. So that has no relevance to this question, which talks about consumers' promotion, right? So A is the best answer. As used in line 48, environment most nearly means 48, this one, right? In the no competition version, participants were given no information about the competitive environment. Okay, so the competitive circumstances, right? What the competition looks like. right? Locale is a physical word, so that doesn't make sense in the competitive landscape or the competitive environment, not scenery and not resources, right? So, what is the competition looking like? What are the circumstances? The studies in the passage suggest that if consumers of a large chain bookstore were given information focusing on the store's small competitors, the likely result is that the large store would receive more positive reviews, gain customers who perceive it as offering more choices, benefit from people's perception that its competition is now even greater, lose customers who would now see it as a competitor of the smaller shop. So it's D. This is given very clearly here that when you put a large competitor versus a small competitor, while participants indicated no preference for the small or large shop when it was competing against a competitor of similar size, the small versus large context elicited a strong preference for the small shop. So this is line 73 to 77, which should be the evidence for the next question. Uh, 70. Okay, that's not even in the options. So we'll have to mark the options. 1 second. Just open the other one. So we have 14 to 15. 14 to 15. 50 to 56. 50 to 56. And 65 to 69. 69, and then you have 69 to 73. 69 to 73. Okay, so the one that I marked is not part of it. Yeah, this is not part of it. Okay. So we're looking at the evidence that the large competitor will lose its clientele when customers are told about a small store. Consumers rallied around JP and the national chain closed its nearby location. Analyzing shoppers' sale receipts and the number of redeemed coupons, we found that shoppers were significantly more likely to make a purchase after reading the large competitor. So I don't think this is the evidence, because this is talking about somebody in the small competitor talking about the large competitor. But we want to talk about support for a large brand decreasing, right? In one study, we asked participants to assess two hypothetical rivals. I still think that the best answer would probably be the last lines of the passage. Um, yeah. Wait, let me just, I will just have to go with B, even though I preferred something, but that's not the part. So B would make sense, right? They would just prefer that. Which approach for increasing the likelihood of consumers making a purchase in a small store is best supported by figure 1? Okay. Let me just open this another place. Okay, figure 1. So consumers' likelihood of making a purchase in a small bookstore based on type of competitor. So it's when, yeah. So if the small store is currently advertising its small competitors, you should provide no information. No, it should provide information, because no information. Oh, right. Yeah, it should provide no information, because then there'll be greater sales. That's what it says. If the small store is providing no information, it should provide information about its small competitors. No, then the sales go down. If the small store is providing information, it should provide information. No, that's not true, because large competitors get the biggest sales. No, so not even D. So uh, the only place where it would get higher sales if it starts providing no information when it is providing information about small competitors. According to figure 2, the average dollar value of purchases in a small bookstore that mentioned small competitors um, in its advertisement. Okay, the average dollar value of purchases in a small bookstore that mentioned small competitors. Okay, based on the type, small competitors. So it was between $15 and $20, right? Which statement is best supported by information in figures 1 and 2? Okay, so let's just look at those figures again. So in figure 1, we are talking about likelihood of making a purchase in a small bookstore based on the type of competitor, and dollar value of purchases based on the type of competitor. Okay. So while customers were more likely to make a purchase at a small store whose advertisement highlighted a large competitor, they tended to spend less than they would have if the advertisement had provided no information about competitors. Is that true that uh, they did present? I'll just 1 second. So they were likely to make a purchase whose advertisement, yes, they tended to spend less. They tended to spend less. No, they didn't tend to spend less. So A is wrong. Advertisement mentioning competitors of any site tended to result in a small store customers making more purchases than if the store's advertisement had provided. Okay, more purchases. No, that's not true because when you have small, it actually goes down. So advertisement mentioning a large competitor tended to result in more customers making purchases and in a higher dollar value for purchase than if the store's information had provided no information. That seems true, right? Because the dollar value is higher and the likelihood of making a purchase is also higher. While customers were less likely to make a purchase at a small store whose advertisement highlighted a small competitor, if it had highlighted a large competitor, the decrease in the number of purchases were offset by the increase. No, that's not true. The small competitor had a lower dollar value compared to large competitor. So C. Okay, let's grade this. Question 11. Okay. 11 is BADAA, BADAA, and 16 is DCACC. DCACC. Okay, DC. I was leaning towards the last paragraph, but 65 to 69 is... Oh, right. They do mention that. Further found that support for a large band decreases. Yeah, they do mention the result. I thought the result was only mentioned in the last lines, but it's mentioned. Yeah, so it would be C then.